My boyfriend has been lying about his Tuesday night plans. We've been together almost a year, and everything has been great, except for this one weird thing where Brandon is completely unavailable every Tuesday night. He always says he's hanging out with Jordan, who he describes as his best friend from college. I've never had a problem with it because I think having close friendships outside a relationship is healthy. Last week, I was shopping with my coworker Diana when she stopped to say hi to someone she knew. She introduced me to her friend and said this is Jordan. Jordan looked surprised to see me, and there was this awkward moment where we both just stood there. Diana mentioned that I'm dating Brandon, and Jordan said, "Oh yes, I've heard about you." We made uncomfortable small talk for maybe 2 minutes before Diana and I continued shopping. The whole interaction felt weird, but I couldn't figure out why. That evening when Brandon came over, I mentioned running into Jordan at the mall. He immediately got tense and asked what we talked about and how long we were there. I said we barely talked at all, and then asked him why he never mentioned Jordan was a woman. He looked caught off guard and said it never came up and wasn't relevant to their friendship. I told him it seemed strange that he'd been spending every Tuesday evening alone with a woman for our entire relationship and had somehow avoided ever mentioning that detail. He said I was making it weird by focusing on gender. Something about his reaction made me push harder. I asked how he and Jordan knew each other, and he got vague, saying they'd been friends for years and had history together. When I kept asking questions, he finally admitted that Jordan was his ex-girlfriend. They dated for 4 years in college and stayed friends after breaking up 3 years ago. I just stared at him, trying to process that he'd been spending every single Tuesday alone with his ex-girlfriend and had never once mentioned this to me in 10 months of dating. Brandon said their relationship was completely platonic now, and he hadn't told me because he didn't want me to feel threatened by a friendship that meant nothing romantic. I pointed out that deliberately hiding this information for 10 months was way more threatening than just being honest from the start. He insisted he hadn't hidden anything, he just hadn't thought it was important enough to bring up. When I said I wasn't comfortable with weekly solo hangouts with his ex, he got defensive. He said I was being controlling and that policing his friendships was a red flag. My best friend Riley said the whole situation was sketchy, especially since he'd carefully avoided mentioning Jordan's gender or their romantic history, which meant he knew it would be a problem. I asked Brandon if he'd be okay with me having weekly one-on-one dinners with my ex-boyfriend. He said that would be completely different, but couldn't explain why. A few days later, I got a message from Jordan asking if we could meet for coffee. I was nervous, but agreed because I wanted to understand what was actually going on. Jordan told me she hadn't known I existed for the first 6 months Brandon and I were dating. He'd told her he was single and only casually mentioned he was seeing someone around 4 months ago. She said when she asked about me, Brandon had been dismissive and vague, saying we were having some problems. Based on how little he talked about me, she'd assumed we were casually dating. Jordan also said their Tuesday hangouts had started feeling less like friend time and more like dates. Brandon had been more physically affectionate with longer hugs and sitting closer to her than felt appropriate for friends. She said she'd started wondering if Brandon was trying to get back together with her, but hadn't known how to bring it up since he kept insisting they were just friends. I asked if she had feelings for him, and she said honestly she'd been confused by his behavior. When they broke up, it had been mutual and she'd moved on, but lately Brandon had been sending mixed signals. Jordan said she wanted to be respectful of my relationship and thought she and Brandon needed to stop their weekly hangouts. She seemed genuine about not wanting to cause problems. When I confronted Brandon about lying to Jordan about me, he got angry. He said I'd gone behind his back and crossed a line by talking to his friends without permission. I told him that Jordan had reached out to me and that his story about their friendship didn't match reality. He said Jordan was confused and reading too much into normal friendly behavior. I said spending every Tuesday with your ex-girlfriend while hiding your relationship from her and hiding her identity from me isn't normal friendship behavior, it's emotional cheating at minimum. Brandon said I was overreacting and that plenty of people stay friends with exes. He said my inability to handle him having a female friend showed I had trust issues. I broke up with him that night. He seemed genuinely shocked and said I was throwing away our relationship over a friendship that had nothing to do with us. But the issue wasn't the friendship itself, it was the systematic lying and manipulation. He deliberately obscured Jordan's identity to me and my existence to her while maintaining an inappropriate emotional connection with his ex. Jordan texted me later saying Brandon had called her upset about the breakup. She told him that keeping our relationship secret from her had been wrong and that she was ending their weekly hangouts. It's been 3 weeks and Brandon keeps texting, asking to talk. He says he realizes now he should have been transparent, but that he never physically cheated and still has feelings for me. I haven't responded because it doesn't matter if he physically cheated or not. He maintained a secret emotional relationship with his ex while lying to both of us about the nature of what was happening.